almost 4 years, the 3+ years, the fighting has been very, very intense. And it is intense because Vladimir Putin is bent on a single purpose. These are the root causes. He wants to subjugate Ukraine. He wants to control what happens in Ukraine, and he wants to control what happens in the rest of Europe. He has decided a long time ago that he didn't like the outcome of the Cold War. He wants to revisit that outcome, and he's looking constantly for new opportunities to do that. He's doing it through the use of force, but he's also doing it through the use of diplomacy. One of the reasons you have these phone calls is the continuing implication that Vladimir Putin is providing that if he can talk with Trump, the two guys, can settle this issue. Unfortunately, you don't settle the issue unless you are willing to give Vladimir Putin everything he wants. And even the United States not only doesn't want to do that, but frankly can't do that. They cannot deliver Ukraine to Russia, which is what Putin wants.
On big tech to Trump crypto, a busy week ahead in the world of business, and Emma Stewart has a preview in the Business Minute. Well, Rahel, it's going to be another busy week in the business world. Today is a crucial day for the UK to reset its relationship with the EU. Brexit. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is hosting EU leaders here in London for a special summit. Trade talks are also in focus tomorrow as G7 finance ministers meet in Canada until Thursday. The Japanese finance minister has said he plans to discuss currency prices with US Secretary Scott Bessent. President Trump has long been critical of the weak yen, and that's been a sticking point during trade negotiations with Japan. And it is a big week for big tech. Later today, Microsoft kicks off its developer conference. We'll likely get some updates on AI innovations, and that's followed by Google's developer conference tomorrow, and then Amazon's annual shareholder meeting on Wednesday. Amazon will be looking to reassure shareholders on plans to deal with tariffs. On Thursday, US President Donald Trump will host a dinner with the top buyers of his crypto coin. That will be at the Trump National Golf Club in Virginia. Of course, it comes at a time when the president is already under a fair amount of scrutiny for conflicts of interest. Back to you, Rahel.
Oh, this bonnets already. We're stepping into another world, certainly a different era.
This is the man, you know, the famous pink dress in the.
That's beautiful. From Marie Antoinette to Les Miserables. And more recently, Snow White. British company Sands Films has been making period costumes for films like these for some 50 years. Okay, well, looking through the endless rows of costumes, this is one you may recognize. This was in the movie. This is based on an American novel. It was produced by an American company, Columbia Pictures, and it was largely filmed in Massachusetts. But the costumes were designed and made here in Southeast London. Some of Hollywood's biggest blockbusters are made in Britain, like the latest Mission Impossible.
I need you to trust me. One last time.
Whether it's the location, Warner Brothers Studio in Easton, Hertfordshire. Hollywood spent more than $1.8 billion in the UK, employing nearly 200,000 people in the industry. And President Trump isn't happy about it.
They have the nice side and everything's good, but they don't do very much.
His threat to slap tariffs on foreign-made films has its skeptics.
I would say it's impossible to put a tariff on the film because asset. That's the issue at stake. That's what they want to do, is to do that. They would have to make the financial environment for the film production to find it more attractive to do it in Hollywood than to do it in Pinewood.
Businesses like Sands Films aren't worried. They plan to be making costumes for all the eras and sizes for decades to come.
You've asked me that 3 times already.
I did? Yes, it's exactly how it started with Mom.
Worry about your brain health?
Cerebellum Brain Wellness has a dual action formula that slows cognitive decline.
And just last hour or so, we're getting indication that I have been going back into Gaza as well. Give us a sense of where this operation is right now, because even your own magazine, the New York Times newspaper, had this headline: Israel announced a new invasion of Gaza. Is it bluffing? Is this a familiar Netanyahu tactic to ramp things up without going full force in a sort of hold me back, I dare you scenario? Or is this a completely different prime minister who's beholden to his coalition?
One is to show force, to do that certainly domestically, because he's looking for the neighboring people who he's saying to us, which is very terrible. There's something that the idea of the movie that we think the same time. Only victim force will be made. Yes, is the subject of today. So the peaceful was since as the result of the leader is really very well. But in any case, the next of the war falls in eyes of the constituents. The government city only for schedule is the voices the alternate voices inside its coalition, and it not seem to continue being one. That's the says, so for Israel is it's certainly to vote with regards to what's happening in the idea says it would take these 5 years to destroy and slow all the building sites. Everybody, the idea is it's a crisis. Reserve several really exhausted.
spoke with Larry Sabato, Director of the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia, about the issues President Trump was faced again against them. It gives me access to the Jews and Joe Biden's cancer diagnosis, and Richard scrutiny over his health while in office.
Important thing about it is it may think that some of the backlash and criticism that Biden has been enduring the last few weeks. It's difficult to criticize someone in this condition. I think it would also take a line out of virtually every Donald Trump statement about everything, which is it's Biden's fault. I think it's going to be very tough for him to use that for a while. And he sent out a nice post when wishing him well, so perhaps that will indicate a change in tone, at least for the time being.
And as we mentioned, the cancer diagnosis comes at a time when the decline of the form of physical and mental health has been in the spotlight, and as the Democrats struggle to find a new leader capable of going up against Donald Trump. How big a political crisis are the Democrats facing right now?
It's a serious one, and they need to get off angry before they get into the real presidential season, which actually won't start until shortly after the midterms. So they've got a while. And the only way out is to admit that they were wrong to encourage Biden to run, and Biden was wrong to run. Even without this cancer diagnosis, it was already pretty clear that he was in no position or no state to run for another 4 years, to serve potentially until the age of 86. Get it behind them. That's what they need to do. Some are realizing that, others are awakening to that reality.
I mean, meantime, Republicans are dealing with their lack of so it's still infighting as negotiations continue over President Trump's agenda package. Speaker Mike Johnson wants this passed by the House on Memorial Day on Thursday, May 26th, but a group of hardline Republicans want deeper cuts to a clean energy tax program and stricter overhauls on Medicaid, specifically work requirements. They block this on Friday. So how likely is it that Speaker Johnson can get this done? And if he does, what will be the likely consequences of what Donald Trump calls his big, beautiful bill?
And finally, the Republican factions are emerging, and they're all over the map. You mentioned the right wingers who are concerned about work requirements for Medicaid and food stamps. And also there are moderates from California. They didn't have what's in their office from California, New York. They didn't be able to do anything. And they're demanding other tax breaks that benefit them, which the right wingers don't like. So the factions are not going to agree on a lot of this. And they're all concerned about the fact that this is adding potentially trillions of dollars to the national debt. And they said they wouldn't do that. But you know what? Rosemary, this is going to pass in some form, whether it's before Memorial Day or after Memorial Day. You got excited into this one big, beautiful bill. They have to pass it. Just kind of the people taking that. Even creating the Fox television. You ever use Expedia or Match.com? Those are part of the app. It is new. I can it will bounce back the person. It's silly thing, actually. So if you think of it now, I will. Let me read the side of the yeah.
So I was, honestly just. The organization of developing those that we did. How did it go? Jonathan said, you can see that it's all reconciled like that. It lost it, but it's alive. So the reason that you don't say you think about it. If it's a little while, then it's very because it could be right. It's not a good see. It's very it was young and it was anti-establishment and not establishment. I'm very excited. And then we did some business, and then we did some, and then we did pots, and then we did all these kind of alternate children. So then you read that everyone thinks you're gonna say, okay, studios and everything like that, but you're going to do anything. Watch. Because I got very lucky in my life with only about serendipitous moments and luck and circumstance. And I, in 1993, 3 years before the internet started to be by both play, I came upon BBC, the some droppings that I saw screens being used for the first time for something other than passing programming. It's a big cookie job. I saw it as being interactive. I never seen a screen being used that way. And that was a differently, I guess. I don't know how. So 2 or 3 years later, a long time that next time, I'm getting things about what that is. I just had this huge head start, totally brought by the serendipitous moment of the stuff on the screens that we use for something other than telling stories. If you got it once a year, oh yeah, well, why not? You know, I think that is not the case. But I think doing it 3 times and 3 different stuff, there's something else that what you think you have for a good idea. Curiosity, I'm simply with it. I think it can be edited, but simply stay everything. That's the thing that I was because everything needs to be that's so it's very bad. So when you look at and we're living it, and it's gonna unfold in the next 5 to 10 years. When are they ready? That's where the ready to say. This, I think, is the hardest time frame. Wait, what?
other major US companies next week load on people as well. They're the same executives who had warned the president of the United States just weeks ago that if the grain deal wasn't made soon, the prices would go up and the store shelves would be empty. What do you make of the current dynamic and these numbers coming in from consumer sentiment to CPI to PPI this week?
Well, there's a lot to dig into there. Look at the hard data, that's CPI, CPI. It's like everything is fine, you know, price, inflation's coming down, things big price gains right now. But I want you to think about it as the top. And Walmart's telling us the stores that we coming, that I'm going to expect to raise prices. If we look around the economy, it's not like we import a few things. Almost everything we consume, some bit of it is imported, right? We have a very globally interconnected economy. It's how we've been able to achieve very high living standards compared to, let's say, where we were 30 years ago or 50 years ago. That globally connected economy means that input prices for almost everybody around the country is going up because there are tariffs. So many of the things they're used to produce it, whatever it is they sell.
And as far as any trade deals go, let's just take a step back and reset, because there's only this one that's announced, and that was the UK. There has been a 90-day pause announced, which was treated with a lot of fanfare, with China. But everything else still is under the same umbrella of the initial 90-day pause. And we heard from President Trump saying that 150 countries want to make a deal, but you're not going to be able to see that many countries. We're going to send a letter out the next 2 or 3 weeks telling people what they'll be paying to do business in the United States. That doesn't sound like there are tangible deals on the table right now. So what can we be expecting in the next few weeks? That July date for the 90-day pause is coming quickly. That's,
you know, I think what we should expect is the uncertainty is going to continue. Basically, companies need to figure out how they're going to maintain their flexibility and their ability to adapt quickly, because I don't think we're going to get any certainty. You know, a 90-day pause is going to come with it. They do get another one. You know, there aren't real deals. What we might see is some, you know, reduction in the kind of tariff like we saw with China, but even there, that's only for 90 days. I think that, you know, these negotiations are going to be what most companies are starting to grapple with and realize is that they are going to be facing higher prices, and they can't afford them forever. You know, luckily, a lot of companies got ahead by increasing the amount of things they brought into the country before the tariffs hit. But this summer, that's going to run out as well. So it's not just that these deadlines are going to approach, but inventories are going to start to get depleted. I don't think there's any other time in history where we've been able to see this far in advance that price hikes are coming, and they're definitely coming. This isn't, you know, a guess. This is something that companies are planning and will be implementing in the coming weeks.
If our sports league, former New England Patriots head coach Bill Belichick, press that it was controversial relationship this morning in an interview on Good Morning America. Here is what he said.
But she's been through a big deal through the whole process, and he's been very helpful to me. He does the things that's really great from relating to North Carolina, like the 100 mile ride side of football. So the former, so a couple things there. Former Patriots wide receiver back started this year with me. For people who don't know, Belichick now coaches at UNC Chapel Hill. But the way he talked about his girlfriend, his love, it sounded like he was talking about a lot. Is that just how he is? Is that just how Belichick talks? Yeah, that's not. It's not too personal. The person who knows him. I think the one thing with Belichick is that watching all this film of high students and stuff is that he always to better be a distraction. Speak for yourself. Your job. He had a few months this time. Really hit hard with us early from the very beginning of our weaknesses, and to see this come together is really interesting. I know that Belichick is, you know,
when he's speaking to my group, he's going to deflect those copies of, he's deflecting this. And, but in today's age, in today's media, social media, well, what are they going to put? It's not ideal. If you asked me 50 years ago, if there's a belief that we had social media, if we had this on social media pages, I would have been in something I had. But Jordan, for instance, a 24-year-old girl, that's a distraction. Let me ask you this question. It's our best football team, and that was you don't have attention for yourself. You don't want to, well, I don't know what that is even, but it's interesting because I'm sure he's preaching the same thing to these young guys as he did to us about distractions and doing the right things and staying off the radar as much as possible. But yeah, this it's for the league. It's what the yeah, relationship with turning everything's doing from Steve's before he kind of opened himself up. He think that opened himself up, maybe it was pressure and all this stuff. And this is a little over the top. So he set me free, girlfriend of my friend's 24, left to 3 adults, and there's nothing illegal about what they're doing, or necessarily even for. It's just odd because this is Belichick describing their relationship during the end. What did George mean to you? Well, we have a personal relationship, and I'm not talking about personal relationships like we do that. Okay, are you happy? Yeah. You're okay. Yeah. Is there part of you that thinks, like the rest of us, being straight, we should just take another story and just move on things, just let me down? I think no matter what happens this season, that's going to be part of the story. Whether they're successful or not, I mean, what they're trying to do is the league is trying out of this, maybe not necessarily record, but somebody whatever sitting at it. Down the road, he's bringing in these student athletes, and he's ushering them, telling them, and finally to the NFL, and that's going to be what being taught. It's taught great technique and all these different things. But when you see this, it's like I said, it's something that's new with anyone who's ever played for Bears or who's ever been around it. I don't know how it's going to translate with these college student athletes in today's world. Yeah, and I think the thing that was the most shocking out of all of this, other than the fact that people are age different, and all of a sudden social media the controversy really blew up when yes, and Jordan, interrupted the interview that was going on. Take a listen. So now that he opened himself up, he was kind of loud there and said, he was a spokesperson. That's I would have never happened. Putting this out there for the do you think this is all because the Eagles so soundly trounced it set him off this sort of spiral where you had to find out soon?
see what we have and so forth. Investigators are coming through evidence outside of Palm Springs fertility. We are fairly confident that subject is Guy Edward Bogus. The subject had nihilistic ideations, and this was a targeted attack against the idea. So some of the posts that he's made online that on his main his manifesto going right now. It's kind of what led us to that. That nihilist. We were chatting with people in online groups, on forums, as well as stuff on recording games. It's good. The different type of exposures to terrorists. I thought it should have been there. But we should believe like this was even a person built to relax, I think, for others. It's the FBI's primary suspect in the explosion. Investigators are looking into what is called an anti-pro-life manifesto. Authorities are also investigating a random audio recording posted online. The man describes his intention to attack an IVF facility. In a statement, the lab said that all eggs, embryos, and reproductive material were undamaged. Police are asking for public's help in identifying the suspect's movements the morning of the blast. Authorities believe Marcus was trying to live stream the attack. This is something we've seen a lot in the last 5 to 10 years, particularly in the realm of mass shootings. There has become a performative element to these crimes, to these attacks. And, you know, we saw it infamously with the shooter in Christchurch. And we've seen it repeated again and again. And it is, I think, indicative of the actor's desire, excuse me, to create fame, to create infamy. Some bold in Gaza, warning here, this important things to point to Sterling.
The next chapter of Israel's war in Gaza is out of the way. The deadliest yet. Over the weekend, the Israeli military launching Operation Gideon's Chariots, striking Gaza with devastating force. Tens of thousands of troops now mobilized for the offensive, the new mission from the top.
We have intense, massive fighting going on, intense and immense. There is progress. We are going to take control of the entire Gaza Strip. That's what we are going to do.
Israeli strikes have killed over 300 since Friday, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health. The toll on civilians is once again rapidly mounting. Among those killed is Alul, taken from this world just 4 months after she was born into it. Her small body now lies on her father's chest, while the family searches for words to make sense. Sleep, mother, father, and the 4-month-old daughter, all targeted in their bedroom. Alul's uncle Omar says, "I don't know what to say. We've spoken a lot. No one is looking after us. Not Arabs, not Muslims. No one." In Khan Yunis, mattresses and belongings are piled high once again as Israel's new offensive triggers Gaza's latest mass displacement. The Israeli military ordering hundreds of thousands of people to evacuate, declaring the area a dangerous combat zone. In that same city, anger and frustration boiled over, looting. Hundreds of Palestinians taking to the streets in a rare protest, calling for the war to end and for Hamas to get out. After pushing Gaza to the brink of famine, Israel now agreeing to partially lift its 11-week blockade.
We need to provide a temporary bridge, minimal, basic aid to prevent starvation. That's the current situation we're in.
The Israeli government says several dozen aid trucks will be allowed into Gaza this week. The new Israeli approved mechanism for aid deliveries becomes operational later this month. Thousands more ready to go aid trucks will continue to be blocked. Amid the destruction of another airstrike in central Gaza, residents are paying close attention to ceasefire negotiations in the Qatari capital. But here, flickers of progress lead only to another body that must be wrenched to rubble. We went to sleep with hope that tomorrow will be better, suddenly everything turned upside down. Brian Duncan says, My message is look at this, stop this war. More men eventually arrived for help with neighbors bond carried out at the level. Signs of hope now seem far away once again. Jeremy Diamond, CNN.
I think it's been very clear, it's not the United States, the United States feels the outcome. The first major outcome of what seems to be glad about is that one of the Russian Ukrainians to put the table. What would you need to do to stop fighting that happen? Second thing is that in on another, besides had to talk to the European about that, great status thing, about talks to the proceedings that allow coalition to impasse. The president's going to say, the president, look, are you serious? Are you feel about this? That it's going to go to the United States is always going to look. There are a lot of economic benefits to following relations between Russia and the rest of the world. But if you get those benefits, people can kill a lot of those people. So if you're willing to stop the killing, the United States is going to be a part of the peace effort because of the Russians, Ukrainians, and greatly nations and other spots around the world. I won't prejudge the president's conversation, but I think it's going to end with him. I know he's looking forward to it, and I hope you know about the things like that. Exciting.
This newly released video appears to show the minutes leading up to Mahmoud Khalil's arrest. Khalil's legal team claims that the never before seen footage contradicts the government's claim that he was flight risk. A concern the officers said justified the life arrest warrant. Those issues are central to the Colombia case, which is challenging the legality of this detention. It's unclear what happened in the moments leading up to the beginning of this footage. At the start of the video, Stephen says Khalil's wife, Nora Abdullah, is seen walking toward the doorway while Khalil is returning home. The government filing last month said that while Abdullah was retrieving his documents, an agent told Khalil to cooperate while they attempted to verify his identity. But Khalil stated that he would not cooperate and that he was going to leave the scene. The agent believed there was a flight risk and an arrest was necessary, documents filed in court saying. At one point in the video, Khalil is seen hacking his phone from the agents, who appears to engage weakly, taking the phone and seeing it. This happens twice and requires an incredible entertainment. The original footage is believed to be 10 minutes, attorneys say. Khalil appears to be in a calm and relaxed demeanor in the video, even appearing to be laughing at one point of the officers. At the end of the video, Khalil's wife is seen handing him a card, which attorneys say was his green card. The video presents Khalil's hand card to the agent.
It's not a reason to end this. It's this. So, Andre, thank you so much for joining us. What did you make of Putin's language today? So understanding. Thank you for having me. Putin's language is the same as it was all the time, all from the beginning of this equation, and even before that.
know, it has a paper to make to the rest of it, to, lower the rate, another far for the national, borders. And, he's, then,